Hello, Lou.
How's it going, Jeff?
It is going fine. I guess we have proof now that I have not podcast faded.
Yes, this is not AI, folks. I can tell he's got five fingers on each hand.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. So anyway,
Yeah, I was getting kind of worried. It's kind of it's sort of touching that I get to be like the first one back after the hiatus.
well, it's like it's I thought, you know what? You're just a it could be a number of people, but I thought of you. I thought, you know what? You got some stuff going on, and it's always a easy time talking to you. And I figured it's been a while. You're about due for a talk with Lou.
Oh man. Well, I got to say, man, I always enjoy your show. I mean, all the podcasts out there have little differences or whatever, and I listen to a ton of them. But there's something about your show that's just like to me, like like it's talking to somebody that's like living the life, that's in this same trench that I'm in, and I'm fascinated by some of the talks you do with folks about like how they go about the creative process and just the nitty gritty that you get into that a lot of folks don't.
Yeah, I mean, I started this because there was the type of podcast I was wanting, and by wanting I mean needing. So getting into the publishing one step at a time, it allowed me a means of being able to facilitate that sort of thing as well. So yeah, it's been a good journey for me. I really have benefited from it myself, and I've been appreciative of everybody that's come on.
And you've had some great guests too. I always, I look at my podcast and I'm like, oh yeah, we had some really, heavy hitters, and I've been real fortunate here and there. But then I get to looking at yours, and it's like, wow, and a lot of them you like caught just before they became like, household names in the RPG world too.
Yeah, it is, and I think a lot of people too. I mean, it's just a matter of asking people.
Yeah,
I found most people are really accessible.
true that, especially in this industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
surprisingly accessible. So, and I think the other part of it is a lot of us are also, I mean, even the people who are, we'll call them like RPG famous, really in the grand scheme of things,
I'm
aren't,
just
and
thinking
they're
like,
and they're
what
also,
does that really mean in relation to anything else? It's like,
yeah, and they're really fans too. So it's just it's kind of interesting how sometimes people you don't think you'd be able to access to or contact to are wanting to. And I will also say my show is not about the like reminiscing with about the old days with the
Mhm.
various luminaries. But if anybody out there uh, wants to interview those people, they are in general, every one of them are very glad to come on and talk about the good old days and things that have happened. So I would recommend that anybody out there who wishes to do so, just don't at all be discouraged because they love it. So
Yeah.
they're proud of the work that they did, and they are proud of having worked for TSR during the time period, and they loved talking about that.
So got a little anecdote. Probably the biggest name that we've had on as far as like most nerds recognize him is Bill Slavicsek, who's the guy that basically made Star Wars a Star Wars universe back when it was first acquired by West End Games. He went into the Lucas archives for West End Games and started making character backstories and all this, and it's amazing at this point that like he's kind of an unsung hero in that regards, because he really, I mean, you would not have any of the expanded universe without him. uh, but the funny thing about getting him on the show is we were trying to find the guy that wrote this Ghostbuster adventure, and I couldn't find him anywhere on the internet, but I could find Bill, and Bill was editor for the particular adventure. So I reached out to him to see if he had any contacts for the other guy, and he's well, he passed away, but I'd be happy to come on and talk about it. So yeah, it's like you said. I mean, you just got to ask. A lot of these folks are real generous with their time.
Yeah, I mean, some have gone on to work in video game industry or have done other
Yeah,
things, but now most of
most
them
of them,
are,
right? Isn't that weird?
yeah. but in general, a lot of these people are retired.
You know,
So, I think getting their stories out and getting those recorded is definitely a I think it's a very important thing. And I don't know that anybody is systematically doing that, but that
mm-hmm.
would be a very if somebody out there want to just have an idea is man, just get all these people and get as much recorded as you can because um, of course, everything on the internet. I mean, every file format is subject to being of no good eventually.
Yeah.
But in general, at least you can kind of keep things, you know, as a repository of information, even if it is anecdotal and 30, 40 years past its time, it's still important history and that people can access that normally wouldn't be able to have access to.
Well, and a lot of them are kind of a dying breed at this point. I mean, every year it seems like, we're losing more and more of them.
Well, Lou, I hate to tell you this, but I think we're getting on the cusp of being a dying breed.
Hey, we got like a generation, right? I mean, you're close to retirement. I'm still a little bit away, but
Yeah, I had a classmate of mine die. We have a pretty small class. I think the first one died in probably early 30s due to cancer. I think I don't know how many other. I'm trying to think if any other classmates died, but
yeah,
another
I've
class.
been kind of unfortunate. We've had four pass away in my class. A couple of them really, really close friends of mine, just different circumstances. But it does, it'll be happening more and more often. I'm sure.
Yes, it will. Unfortunately, either if it won't, it will be because you'll be the one in the obituary. But it's the only
Yeah,
way to. So, anyway, away from less depressing news.
yeah. Hey, yeah. Oh man. Let's see. One thing I thought would be interesting is, would you say that like right now your kind of flagship product is the Gary's Appendix?
How would you define flagship?
Well, like when you think of everything that you're putting out, you think about like how how do I want to put this? How consistently it's received and talked about and the interest that it builds. Does that seem to be like a lot of people's entry point into your products?
Yeah, I will say, well, it's strange. Yes, it is by far consistently the best selling of the things that I do.
No.
That is true.
So
And
for me, the same thing is true for the Unnatural Selections monster book I did,
really,
and the volumes for it. And what
yeah,
I find ironic about that is because I think, I might be wrong, but we were kind of conversating about, oh, what about a monster book? What about this? Kind of looking at, if we had any projects that kind of would we could team up on or whatever.
yeah,
And I think didn't Gary's Appendix kind of come out of that for you? And
yeah. So it is interesting because originally it was going to just be a bestiary, but then I had in mind that I wanted to do like more serious. Well, I'll say serious, more serious, but kind of like a more serious journal. Kind of
I
flighting
remember
through
you
my
saying you kind
mind.
of wanted some like pseudo academic pieces to kind of build a
Yeah,
knowledge base, like, I don't know, kind of almost like the old Dungeoneer's Guide where it like told you about like real spelunking and, real
yeah.
cave architecture and stuff. But
But then I for whatever reason, because I am the way I am, I had this idea that I wanted to do this Kickstarter, and then I thought, well, I just want to make it more accessible and less relying on a few people, but being able to kind of crowdsource it more. And so I just combined the two into Gary's Appendix. So I don't know. I don't know if I was hedging my. I don't know exactly why I did what I did.
explain yourself, sir.
Yeah, like I don't know if I think I wanted the bestiary. I don't know if I just didn't feel like I'd come out with enough creatures to fill a book. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know. But for some reason, this is the route I took. And I think in general, I have trusted my feelings. And I am also very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Um, I'm not a very, I don't necessarily plot out things way in advance. I mean, I have ideas and then all of a sudden it seizes me, and I just take hold of it and run with it and see what happens. So, and it's been a work in progress as I've been doing it, and things I kind of have learned and felt my way through. And I'm kind of, I took inspiration because I went back, changed the actually the heading, my title, graphics different now, but um, I'm looking back at the old Dragon magazines. If you flipping through those, like the formatting has changed,
Mm-hmm.
the graphics for the Dungeons and Dragons or the dragon, uh, even that whole look has changed off and on over the years. And so I kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to start with issue one, and I know that issue five is not going to look like issue one, and probably issue 10 is not going to look like issue five. Uh, and because I think you can get kind of bound up if you try and get everything figured out. And so it's been a grand experiment. It's really what it's been, and it's worked out. It worked out well. But one of the things, Zach Goins, he wondered, we might put this in a questionnaire for Backer Kit, but I don't know which is more popular. Is it the bestiary? Is it the articles, or is it the combination?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I imagine there aren't too many people that are, fans of the bestiary. They're going like, oh man, but it's got this other content in it, or vice versa. I'm sure that like, it's probably hitting a sweet spot for everybody and maintaining maybe a wider audience. I mean, that's just my guess. But
Well, I did have kind of somebody who on my Facebook. Have you done Facebook ads, Lou?
I, my problem is I cannot get them to, how you get the like special link that then tells you on Kickstarter like how many came through the ad.
Yeah,
I can't get that figured out. So I have done them, but I really don't know how successful they are. I I've seen bumps after I've done them, so I imagine I'm at least getting my money back.
that's interesting. I think next Kickstarter, let me know. We can
Okay.
walk through that because that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what happens is on the comments on those ads, you ever just get weird comments?
Not normally. Normally it's just the old lazy boy like hand. That's all I really get.
Who boy, have I got some interesting things going on.
Really on an advertising.
Who boy. So I guess people publicly posted this, but I've kind of uh so I've only told like I think one other person this, but so so I so going back to Gary's appendix, the name.
Hmm.
I kind of posted on Twitter what people thought. Some people liked, some people didn't. I mean, I picked it because of a couple of reasons. One is it harkened back to the D&D Dungeon Master's Guide
Yeah.
and the quirky.
Where all the most interesting stuff was at the end of the book.
Yeah, exactly, and exactly. And the other thing is, obviously Gary and appendix. There's kind of a play on words. It's kind of a little bit, but there was always a hesitation. It was always a hesitation. Um, it that it is somebody's dad. You know what I mean? And I tried not to ever lean into you know the appendix part of it. I mean, there is kind of that, you know what I mean? But I
Mhm.
tried to not ever go there, and I don't really try to make much of it. And I've had people kind of comment about making fun of, and when I've had some covers that like the sword and sorcery where it's got the gal with the axe, and I put the ad with the blood smears, and I didn't really quite put it together, and then so people made comments. That was I just tried not to. I didn't respond to it, but then I and then one guy finally said, "Hey," he said, "wrote you guys you canceled Gary, and now you're trying to make money off of him."
Hello, what?
So I said, "Well, I was never consulted when they canceled him. I was never advised. I had nothing to do with what does that even mean? I don't know. I wasn't trying to
Mhm.
unravel. I just tried to do it." And so then the guy summons Ernie Gygax. And so I thought, okay, in the past I thought, should I should I go to the kids and to the
Mhm.
family? But I thought there's many of them, they have different opinions. It, I just didn't know, and I just whether I should have or shouldn't have, I don't know. But I started to feel very awkward all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
it's like, it is to somebody's dad, and so I
Well,
thought,
and there's that question of like, and I don't know because I've not accumulated this fame or whatever, but like how much of their dad's legacy as a RPG influencer belongs to them, and how much of it belongs to those of us who play the games and are in the hobby.
yeah,
You know
well,
what I mean?
it gets better.
Uh,
Okay. And so Ernie says a few things. I thought, what I need to do is I just need to send Ernie copies of the PDFs. And I sent them to him. I looked through them. I mean, he looked through them and he got back with me. He didn't read them all, but he complimented what I was doing. He knew what I was doing, and he was said, yeah, that's cool. I don't feel the need for Ernie Gygax's blessing. There's nothing about Ernie that I feel beholden to, but it just made me feel good that what,
yeah.
it's his dad, and it is obvious, maybe not obviously, but there is a hint that it's his dad involved, and he was happy with it, and that I felt fine until Luke Gygax responds.
Oh, uh-oh. Because I've talked with Luke several times and he's been just the nicest guy, but okay, what happened?
He was like, "I cannot believe that you are." How did he put it? Basically, you are supporting somebody who is using our dad's name to get to bump up his credit or something like that. Something like that.
Hmm.
Well, I don't know if I should say this, but I guess I will. So then somebody responded, and then Luke responded in kind, and then they responded to the effect of, "It's going to get pretty ugly." So anyway, I'm just reporting because this is what was going on public Facebook. My thing
We got
was,
like this flame war going here.
yeah, they said Luke. They said about Luke because they said you ignored, you avoided, or you what's the word I'm looking for? Where you don't pay attention to somebody, you ignore them, you abandon, or you
Okay.
what's I'm looking for?
The banding sounded good to me.
Yeah, for 20 years and he's dead. Now you're trying to cash in on his name. And I thought, ooh, and Luke took out certain portions and that all disappeared. And I thought, oh my goodness, I felt really bad. I thought, should I reach out to Luke? And then I thought, I just need to just think about this for a day, right?
uh-huh.
You know, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, I, who he doesn't own this. I mean, it's an homage.
Yeah.
And then I went to Gary Con, and my goodness. And then he's got this Kickstarter. He's got his dad as a miniature that you can buy. I mean, if you look at the whole thing, if you even look at the stuff that he's doing that promotes himself and all these pictures of him as a paladin and whatever, and as an angel shooting it, it's like all over. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm not making his dad a miniature that's to be sold. I'm not putting images and doing a thing where it's like, oh, go, the mage such and such and go save him and have a $200,000 Kickstarter. I'm not even doing that. I'm just paying. I'm giving an homage to a person that was influential that produced a work that I really enjoyed, and there is nothing that I am doing that is any way that I feel would demean the work that Gary did
Yeah.
or
Well,
his name.
it seems to me, I mean, it's not like the name's not on there to get name cred. The name's on there to direct the idea of, like we already talked about, the appendix he made for the Dungeon Master's Guide, where you can get your damage scores for your Star Frontiers laser into your D&D game and all that. I mean, it's the thing he made that's being referenced, not him. And yeah,
Yeah. So
that's too
anyway,
bad.
yeah. So anyway, and that's the thing. I look now, it's like, well, he's a special guest at North Texas RPG
Yeah.
Con. And I thought, well, I could, I thought about because you go down there to sell books. And I thought about selling books, and I thought, I know probably nothing would happen, but it's like that's kind of awkward now. And Luke's a
Well,
big guy. Luke is an absolutely like if you look at him, the
oh
guy's
yeah,
got arms that are bigger than my thighs.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
could he
He's
could
yeah.
pull me apart piece by piece if he wanted
His wife could take me out. Have you seen her?
to. Mm-mm.
She's a fitness queen herself. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so I need to
yeah,
buff up before I go to North Texas.
get some roids.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe get a crew to a safety guard. But and there's
but
been no other and there's not been any interaction from Luke other than that. And
uh,
so
well, I don't know. Most likely, what happens at North Texas usually is, once the main part of gaming is done for the day, everybody goes to the hotel bar and hangs out and just shoots the crap, and so I'll have to see if there's a good moment to like bring it up and be like, hey, what was that about?
you ought to bring out Gary's appendix and ask him to sign a copy.
Oh man, that would be sweet.
So anyway, I just need to not I'm
Bought
not
this
much
because
of
it
a
had your dad's name on it. Can you
yeah,
please sign
exactly.
this?
So anyhow, that's one of my Facebook ad story. I got this is I get all sorts of stuff going on, and I don't know. But anyway, there's a certain amount of I would say quote unquote entertainment that can happen on your ads. You know,
Sounds so, because I've thought in the past that it'd be cool for somebody to do like a magazine, like where it's just set up where it's going to be delivered, ever so often, and whether you could do that with Kickstarter or with a Kickstarter type model or not. Is that anything that you've thought of with Gary's Appendix, or is it just like, hey, no, as I got them ready, I'll just Kickstart them one at a time as a zine?
I don't know. I think the I mean the idea of having a subscription model, it's kind of what you're talking about, is do a
Mhm.
subscription model. I had thought of that. I just don't think it is. I don't think it is got a large enough audience to really support that.
That okay.
But it is a reasonable thing. But I also, I guess I kind of like the freedom of not having to feel beholden to be quarterly or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Because I don't know. I mean the pacing. I'm doing three a year. It may change next year. So I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered. I mean, one of the things I told you that I've been doing lately is the whole parallel development where you're buying things and developing things, all at the same time with the thought that okay, you can get kind of bulk deals and stuff for different vendors and writers and artists and whatnot. So I wondered about that. Like if you could do a Kickstarter to say like, okay, this Kickstarter is for 3 issues delivered throughout this, the 2024 year. Um, if that would be something you could even do. I don't know,
Yeah, you
what
can. Trevor
happened.
did that. Trevor Stamper did for
Oh, with a smoking worm.
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that he had, that he does, a consistent delivery on that with Kickstarter. But I didn't know that he had a model like that.
He did that. I don't think a problem sharing. He the Kickstarter did well, but the I think the backer kit side of things didn't do so well. So it's like people coming are spending X amount of money. So um, that is the danger of that.
So just to clarify, when you say the backer kit side of things didn't do well, do you mean like there weren't not many people went for add-ons, or you
Yeah,
mean that?
yeah. Backer kit. There's add-ons for I guess you call
Mhm.
them add-ons for backer kit, but yeah. So the danger is, I mean, the danger is that you put out two magazines and or two zines and in the end it's not doesn't maybe it may not be as financially successful as if he had ran two separate ones.
Hmm,
But that just that's one data point. I
interesting.
think it would make I I think I think those things probably make more sense with I'm trying to think. It may be some things. I'm trying to think. I think I have some people that would do that. I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what type. So you don't do you use backer kit at all, Lou?
I don't. I,
So that's another thing to do is ask, could ask in the future, would people be interested in subscription service? The problem with the subscription service is, well, here's my one issue with the subscription service is that I think I find that every time I do a Kickstarter, I get new people.
mm,
And so you're also getting one less time that you're going to be getting new people in the fold.
interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right. It kind of kills your growth model. Yeah.
And I also been finding that people I've been making much more, the highest percentage of the money made is at the higher tiers. So in general, I can make more money off of on just the Kickstarter tiers that are $50 or more.
I, forgive me, but what do you for Gary's appendix? What's your high tier model like? Like, what do you normally
Well,
do?
it'll be like five physical zines, and it might throw in like Fate of the Fly God, it might throw in several things all at one time. So
Do you think is that like brick and mortar stores and stuff?
no,
Tell
no,
them no.
no. People say yeah, they'll say, you know what, I want the whole thing. I've never been a backer. This is interesting. Never been a backer. We'll see it. They'll say yeah, give me everything. $100, $108, or $106, whatever it is, and it's like so. They've helped me out. It's
Yeah,
like it's like
I've had a couple on the Derelict Club RPG thing that I do. There's been a couple times people have gotten in when I've been kickstarting one of the adventures for it, and they just like I'll take everything you got, just put it all
yeah,
in one box and ship it. You know.
they're completionists. They see
Yeah.
it, they like it, they want it, and they want to be complete. And so, that's where I think, it's easy for us as far as being on the side that we are to, you wonder like, is anybody going to spend this much money? It seems kind of high, da da da. But if you price it right, and people see value in it, people will buy those higher tiers.
Yeah, and I know that I think we probably both have some I guess you could call them patrons that like they're in on every Kickstarter. They always go, full distance and really, you're like, wow, man, you really like my stuff that much? Okay, great.
Yeah.
There's a few of them that, I see on every Kickstarter. I'm just like, wow, that's really generous of them to always go in the full amount because, they definitely don't have to. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and I've had some that have been. I didn't check for Journey. I've had some people have been there the whole time since Scoundrels make your game criminal. But I don't know. I think I might have lost some of them with Journey to the Madlands.
The
It's
first one or
no, the second
this
one.
recent? Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a point where I'm planning on doing some Kickstarters this year.
Wow.
Nobody. It is very unreasonable to expect people to keep, even if they are on board, to say, you know what, you know, let's just stop for a while. It's very reasonable for people want to say take a break. I mean, some people enjoy. I think some people like say Gary's appendix, for them coming out 3 times a year is probably perfect. But if somebody's wanting everything that I do, there's going to be a point where they're going to say, yeah, I'll take a break and catch up later, maybe, or maybe
Well,
not.
and that's where I find myself with the parallel development thing is I've got several projects that look like they're all going to hit, mid to late summer, ready to go, and it's I gotta, now I've got to like be like, well, no, can't pull the trigger on them because if I put everything all out at once, then those people that have been so generous to try to back everything, I just can't do that to them. I can't,
So are they all? So how many different systems are you talking about?
So of the ones that are real close, I've got four of them would be DCC adjacent products. Like one of them's an MCC adventure. Three of them are the little cover stories I do, which are like the short form. They were supposed to be pamphlet adventures. Here's one here that it's like looks like a game master screen, but it's an adventure.
Yeah.
So three of them are those. So they're real tiny, but they're all different DCC. I don't know what you call them, systems, subsystems. So like one of them's for DCC, one of them's for Weird Frontiers, which is their like Western version, and then one of them's for MCC.
So why wouldn't you just group them together and do them all at once?
Well, those I probably will because it's the kind of thing that they're cheap enough. Most people are going to be like, yeah, just, give me all three of them and, maybe I'll use them, maybe I won't kind of thing. But so I've got those. I've got the adventure for MCC, and then I've got an adventure for the Dare Luck Club that all are going to be, ripe and ready to pick right about the same time. And
Well,
then
wait,
just around the corner
yeah.
from that, I got my third version of Unnatural Selections. Like just a month later, it's going to be ready to roll. So that's to me like probably too much content for the space of like a couple months.
Well, the DCC and the MCC, you could very easily just put together. I think that would probably make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the issue then is like, so I push things apart a little bit, which is no big deal. I mean, it's not like it's going to go bad sitting there, but the thing that for me becomes problematic is that then we get into the end of the tax year, and now I've got my expenditures are greater than my profits, right? So,
Do
um,
Well, not to get too personal. So your expenditures are great in your profits, but the question is at the end of the year, do you pay do you end up owing money at the end of the year for taxes?
well, so the first couple of years I was doing this, I did because I was doing pretty well. This last year, because I started this parallel development and I had a whole bunch of money go out, and now I've got resources, but not money coming in. So I had one year where this last year I, declared a loss and, was able to write some of it off or whatever. But then coming up, like if you do that too many times, then you become, I forget what they call it. You're no
A
longer a
hobby?
business, you're a hobby. Yeah. So,
I I would not worry about it as long as you are showing that I mean, you are a business. So you are you hire freelancers, you purchase product. I mean,
mhm.
everything about what you're doing, I think it's more of people who and I understand, but I think it's more if you're just like you have I don't say a hobby farm, but maybe a hobby farm or something like
Mhm.
that, where it's like, you're writing off like, $10,000 or $20,000 a year, and it's like,
You're raising
like
those llamas and
yeah, but what we're talking about is a pittance, even what we're our losses are compared to our income. But I'm saying is, but that also applies obviously for me, which is important at least at this point in my life is if it, I really I'm paying too much in taxes at the end of the year, and I got to figure out a way to stop that. So anyway, any if I'm on the loss side, it doesn't hurt me at all. In fact, it helps me out.
Well, that's the other thing I need to. I've been doing my own taxes on both personal taxes and business, and it's been okay. I mean, it's not always super clear, but I think I've done a pretty good job so far. But I know that there's a deal where you can carry over losses, where you can say, well, I don't want to declare these losses this year. I'm going to declare them next year, and that way, when the income comes in, you've got something to counterbalance it with. So I guess that's probably the strategy I need to look into.
Yeah, I tried to be real clever last year, and actually it did work out. The it's kind of like how no, is that true? Yeah, I was able to clear. I was kind of afraid it wasn't. So I did a Kickstarter at the end of January. So I get paid out at the end of January. But even though I got paid out in the end of January, I didn't actually show from Kickstarter. It actually didn't show on it hit the bank account until or end of December. So I Kickstarted at the end of December, got my 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
in December. But when the money hit my bank, it was like 3 days later, and it was in January.
Yeah. So and there's something I forget what it is, but did you were able to declare it on the previous year's
I
taxes?
thought I wasn't going to be able to, but I could
Yeah, I
at
think
that
there's
time.
like I am not a tax expert for listeners, but yeah, there's like a thing where it's like so many weeks into the next year, you can still consider that to be income from the previous or for the previous year.
Well, but then the way Kickstarter sends you that sheet, they say they gave it to you in 2024 or 2023, even though you didn't get to 2024. So
Oh,
it
so
get weird.
okay.
So anyway, end of year can get weird. But I guess my point is sometimes you can try and plan these things out, but sometimes things just don't work
Yeah.
out like how you think. But
Well, I guess that's the other thing I keep telling myself is like, I'm not making these things because I think I'm going to get rich or anything. I'm making them because I can't not, like it's just frying in my brain and I gotta get something done out there and published, it makes me feel good and excites me. Uh, so I guess, worrying about, I take another loss for another year, that's silliness.
No, I think as long as you're showing that you're a legitimate business, and you are a legitimate business. So, and I think that's reasonable. But I think what I don't want is to have what I don't want to have is to have a bunch of income on one year and a bunch of write-offs on the previous year. I mean, I really want that to counteract.
Balance, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's those are third world problems, I guess, or first world problems. So. But yeah, I don't want to take a big hit on taxes and also get it on a time I don't need it. So vice versa. But yeah, so you were able to see this is kind of interesting because I tend to for most of my projects I tend to buy art closer to when I'm ready to kickstart. But you've had already have a good idea what you're wanting to
Well,
do.
in another big difference between our operations, I think, is that you're normally, by the time you kickstart, you're ready to hit publish or whatever. Maybe you even have already published it. Whereas
Yeah.
for me, I'm normally about 3/4, and then I say, okay, I'm gonna kickstart it just so I kind of get a feel for how big this is going to be and how, what that last quarter of input's going to look like, whether it's going to be, a lot more art or whether it's just going to be okay, do some nice layout to kind of make do with what you got and that kind of thing.
Well, what you're doing is, I believe, what the original intent was for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You bring something to life, right? It's not like the Kickstarter isn't saying, "Oh, it's a pre-order store," and or mechanism. So that's what it is for me. It tends to be more of a pre-order than really. It really all it's really doing is funding other things in the future that are unrelated to the project.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and for me too, because I'm hoping to be running, so I'm hoping to be running another Kickstarter here in about another month. So, and
Anything
then
you can tell us a little bit about?
Gary's Appendix 6,
All right.
yeah, Dragon, rawr. So, and then after that, I'm hoping in August.
And is that the same artist that did the gelatinous cube?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man, he's sweet. There's some like top shelf art you're getting for your zine there.
He he Danny Taryn, he it's a bit cartoony, but what I like about it is it kind of for old school essentials, it kind of fits or is
Yeah,
fine.
no, exactly.
And his designs are very graphically strong, visually
Mm,
striking. So I've been very, very happy. And he's quick. But see, the thing is with him is generally I can give him something and when 2 or 3 weeks I'll have it.
yeah.
So I think I've got some people that I've been able to get quick turnarounds, but other people like Dell, I won't pronounce his name right, but Gigler, however it is. If I wanted to use him, I definitely need to, be thinking ahead of time. So,
Yeah.
which during the
Well,
Madlands, I bought mine, cover ahead of time. It's like, because you just never know, somebody like him, they may be have a lot of projects going on, or they may be, hungry and ready to do something.
but no, you're talking about your art, and that is kind of interesting to me because I found that those covers, um, they hit this like sweet spot where they still feel to me like the kind of cover you would have, back in the 80s and 90s for
Yeah.
D&D type stuff. But then they also have an aesthetic about them that the part that maybe you're calling cartoony that fits more with like what's out there with 5e now, uh,
Yeah.
as far as a lot of products in OSE especially. Yeah, it's just that perfect kind of mix.
The good thing is when you have an artist like that who has a very particular look, you can keep a consistent look for your product. But the problem is I had with Scoundrels of Brixton where I had the artist who did the first two covers just kind of flaked on me, and now I have a certain kind of look, and
Trying to get that match.
yeah, so it was kind of stressful there for a bit. I was able to find somebody. And so I found what I did is I found one guy I will look for. I started looking through my books, my RPG books, and see if I get some names and for covers. And one guy was unavailable. I was kind of discouraged. And then I went to I think I typed in Google like artist Pathfinder or Starfinder, one of the two. And then somebody just had like a Reddit where they had like a person and a picture, a person, a picture, a person, a picture, and I just laid those out and emailed like 8 people, and I got a couple. I got three that responded. But the gal that was really interested in doing it, when it finally came down to price, it was easily more than 1.5 times what I
Yeah.
pay more for Scoundrels than I do any other cover, and it was one
Really?
and a half times what more than 1.5 times than I normally pay. So I was like, you know, I'd love you to do it, but sorry,
it,
like, but maybe someday when I'm,
it is so weird that like that what you pay for art and what you get sometimes feels so unrelated.
yeah,
Uh, and it, I mean, and then it's just also like you're working with all these different artists, and they all have their own timing as far as like when they're going to deliver.
yeah,
Like I got a guy kind of like your guy, where it's like if I email him the night and say I need this, I might even get it before I wake up in the morning. I
yeah,
mean, he's just that kind of manic sort of. Oh, I got time, I'm gonna do it. And then I've got an artist that if I don't email him every week and say, hey, how's it coming with this? I may not get that, whatever it is. He may forget about it, So it's such a weird world dealing with artists. It's wonderful. I love it, but it's weird.
Well, I'll say the problem is you need to know, and a lot of times you may not know till later, but like could be the guy that you have to continually prod. He's worth it, but you just know that if you're going to order art, you need to do it ahead of
Mm-hmm.
time, and you need to prod him, and you probably need to give him a deadline that's before the deadline you really need it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. It is hard. It is hard to go. The problem is that when you're especially you're trying to get it's trying to get a certain look and trying to get certain people and find an effective range. Because I mean, a lot of the people you can go and look and ooh and ah, but these people are like, if you go to ArtStation, some of these people there's a lot of people that just aren't great, and you look at the people that are great. These people are like concept artists for video game companies.
Yeah. And
It's
yeah,
just
who's gonna
like,
yeah, when you can get, $4,000 a cover for video games, or whatever they do for the video games, who's gonna do an RPG cover for 500?
yeah, but sometimes you get somebody. So, but I would say it's I've been successful, but it's definitely like even finding Danny for this. I went to Upwork and searched for artists, and you look through the portfolios, and
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you had told me before that like he has no RPG background, like
none,
D&D, all
no,
that stuff's just so.
yeah, I had no idea what gelatinous cube was.
I was gonna ask, like, so how is that? Like, how detailed do your emails have to be to explain what things are? Do you just give them like pictures of what it was in the monster manual to go with, or what? Like,
So
what do you
yeah,
do?
I Googled and found like 3 pictures and sent those to him, and he just what he did was I could show you the if I were to show you the pictures, none of them he obviously did not copy any of them,
Yeah,
but he yeah. So in this one, I gave him like I gave him like 2 or 3 images, and they were iconic dragon covers. But you look at this, it's not really like any of those. So, he's very good at being able to just saying, yeah, I understand this. I understand what you're looking for, and keeping his own uh, look. Because I mean, it, it it might be kind of fun to do an homage to a cover, but or whatever. But in general, it's like it's really best in my mind if you can get somebody that has vision and wants to do a
fresh.
certain
Yeah.
thing with it.
Do you have any artists like I've got one guy that I've gotten to the point where I just kind of I tell him like this sort of thing, and it's very very vague, and then he just does what he does. And then I've got some artists where I've got to like go through every nut and bolt and be like, this over here, that over there,
I think so. The gal that I did not hire, um, she would have knocked out of the park for scoundrel or for the scoundrels, and hers, she started asking things, and then she started shooting. This is before I got the price, and then she started shooting back ideas, and it was like what she was asking and then what she was responding with was like very great. She was kind of throwing some concept sketches up, um, and I found that process was good. She definitely she knew her stuff. I mean, she
mm-hmm.
definitely was a it's like, but the next guy I ended up getting, he likewise, we went back and forth. He threw a couple quick sketches and then we just kind of tweaked it along the way. And but I think once he did like three rough sketches and I picked one and then maybe he did something else and I just said, I need the obelisk further back and I want to do this. And then he there was a lot of zhuzhing with that. With Dell, with the Journey of the Madlands, I did a mock-up with pictures I got from the internet, and it's so I did a collage, and so he took that that collage and then did his thing with it. So if you were to look at it, you're like, if I were to put them side by side, it'd be very obvious that he drew inspiration from
From
that.
what
But
you
it's
had.
also, and he knew exactly what to do. But what he did, it wasn't quite what I was thinking. But when he did as a good artist will, they produce like strong leading lines, and so it was he was able to take the concepts. I think a lot of these people you can either give them pictures, but you got to give them something. You can't
Mm-hmm.
just say, I want a guy that looks cool with a gun.
Yeah, I've got one artist that I can do that with. It's just I don't know what it is, but he's like in my mind. Like whatever I tell him, he always produces it exactly how like I was imagining it, it seems. And then, I've got people on the other side of the spectrum, some of the guys that I work with that are I got one guy that I work with that's from what is it? Chile? Um it's either Chile or what's the Argentina. Can't remember which one he's from, but because of the language barrier, there's oftentimes a whole lot of like, oh no, I like one time I asked him to have a old broken down mill alongside a river, and what I got back was a big windmill. It's like no, 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 like flour mill, like and he's like, oh, what's that? There was for whatever reason, culturally or experience wise, he in his mind he was didn't have that picture that's in my mind here living in the northwest and or northeast. I mean,
It's almost like a like an AI error kind of thing. It's
yes,
like
yeah.
also you're like, what? But with a real person, like what?
Change the order of those adjectives. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's sometimes you can find because I had an artist who had different experiences. I mean, different part of the world. So I was explaining creature names and things. I just things didn't always come back looking the same way, but I was kind of appreciative that it didn't. So I think sometimes it works out, but other times it's like no, 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 no. It's like no, 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 no. Yeah, it's been interesting. I've also find some artists have been they'll pause at different times. I also had one that just did something nearly complete and then it was a bit of corrections. And next time I use them, I'm definitely going to tell them you need to stop. It's like it went from just very loose, simple shapes on a with a pencil to bloof. It's like, well, no, I gave you a pretty description and it's
Too
not really
fast, right?
matching
Yeah.
that. And
I
now we got
had
to go
that
through and
experience.
change it.
So I met this guy at the what convention was it? CincyCon, the one I went to just outside of Cincinnati, and he was out. He had his portfolios, walking around the booths and stuff, and real nice guy, super sweet. Portfolio looked amazing, and so I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to you after this. We'll do a piece and see if we kind of jive with each other, and if it's a good relationship. But I got other stuff for you. So I give him a description and I get back a fully painted thing, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, like
Yeah.
because it's like you're now way too far, and it's not what I was meaning,
Yes, yes.
yeah. So
So, and I think, some people you may be able to just say, give them another chance, but next time you say, you know what, stop after the certain
yeah,
point. Before
uh-huh.
you do any start laying down any color, before you start laying down any thick lines, before you start putting any details, you know, and then next time, I want you to stop at this next point. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is funny. It is funny, but it's like you say, it can be an experience working with a variety of people. But it's been, I think, for the most part, been pretty positive for me.
So you're talking about keeping the covers consistent with Gary's appendix, and with unnatural selections, that's one of the things I wanted to make sure I did is like the interior art of the monsters. It's the same artist every single, like right now there's I don't know 240 monsters, and they're all, well, I mean that's how many are illustrated anyhow, and they're all by the same guy. uh, but then
It's a
I
lot of
get worried.
illustrations.
What's that?
That's a lot of
Yeah, that
illustrations.
is, yes. But I get worried because now it's like I'm locked in, and I love this guy. His art's amazing. I wouldn't ever want to not have him. But there's going to be a point in time that either he's going to get bored of drawing monsters, or somebody's going to scoop him up, and he won't have time for me. And then I'm like, oh wow, then what do I do then? Can I find someone that can ape him, or do I just say nope? We're just going to go in another direction and have different monsters for the next collection. I don't know.
So I've got a project I'm planning on for 2025, and I think what I'm going to do is there are two artists that I know are kind of similar. They're not exactly the same, but I think they would both work well together.
Mm.
And then through my last experience with Scoundrels of Brixton, the cover, there's another guy that I would have probably chosen. He was a little bit cheaper, but the guy I got was he knocked it out of the park. Absolutely phenomenal. But he may be a good fit too. So I may split up the bestiary for the blood sands of Xanathos. Xanathos. I can't
Is
remember
that the
anymore.
one that's got the kind of Egyptian-like theme to it?
No, it's gonna be science fantasy. It's gonna
Oh,
be
okay,
very
nice.
hard leaning into that whole weird science planet
Mm.
Terry
Sword and Planet kind of stuff. Yeah,
Jordan planet. Yeah, so
I love that stuff. That's I think my current favorite place to be RPG wise.
yeah, so that one I think for the artists, I will like say I'll use three of them. Probably one of the people I'm using for a cover. But again, in the what I'm planning on doing is making this as an OSC product, and then I'm actually trying to use this to fund art and the writing, and then expand out from there. So, but anyway, it's the other thing is what I would say is it's you could tell the guy doing that, but you may want to find another guy to do like part of the creatures. It's like
Start
so the
down
same I see with
memory
these three people. It's like if at least two of them are similar, I can always kind of flip flop a little bit and won't be too jarring.
jarring. Yeah, yeah. My my first project that I did with this company that I'm running, which was I guess it wasn't technically the first, but close to the first, was the Derelict Club rule book. And at that point, I was, had no money to run things off of. It was all out of pocket. And so the art is like, they're all great pieces of art that the artist did. I did some art in there that's crappy, but the stuff by the artists, uh, they're all phenomenal, but they're very, very different in tone. And at the time, I just kind of wrote it off as well. When we were kids playing these games and stuff, all the books were full of mixed bags of art. They
Yeah,
didn't, but now I'm looking back and thinking, going forward, curating that, and trying to make it so that tonally it all feels the same is probably a good idea.
yeah, and that's one thing I have not done with Gary's appendix, or at least some of the like the best area art and such. So, but I think if I ever do a collection, an omnibus, I think at that point, do I just go ahead and just pay for art for, for a bunch of creatures. I don't know, like 40 creatures. It's a,
It's interesting, I'll tell you that much. Trying to like when you put a big order like that out there, and uh
yeah. So
it's
like for
fun.
instance, Danny, I thought does a great job for the for the covers, and he's done some creature ones and some other stuff that I don't know that I really like as much as stuff for the bestiary section.
Mhm.
I probably prefer things more realistic, but he's gotten me out of a pinch before, and things have worked. Uh,
Mhm.
but but I think it's those are definitely things to think about. But like you said in the beginning, one is you don't have much money, and two, if you're doing something that's art heavy, it can rack up
Yeah.
very quickly costs.
Yeah, the monster book, I mean, I love it. It's one of my favorite products I make, but I don't make much off it because there's not much what do they call it, meat on the bone or whatever by the time you pay for art and stuff for all that.
But every Kickstarter you should be able to sell. So you should do that as an add-on for every single Kickstarter.
What's that?
You should
Oh,
do
you
that as
mean
an
putting it in there as a bonus buy? Yeah, yeah, you're right. And that's when I kind of schemed on how it was going to work out. That was one of the things I told myself, look, this I gotta look at this as being like an evergreen project. Like this is a project that every year I'm putting out a new collection of monsters. And when that happens, not only am I selling those monsters, but people that are jumping in on that point are now going back and buying, the first volume, the second volume. And that's worked out. And it's again just one of those things of being able to, keep in my own mind that accounting wise, this may not, fund with a huge profit this Kickstarter, but these copies I have sitting in my, quote unquote warehouse, my garage, my air conditioner, my what do you call that, climate controlled garage. Uh, these are valuable in a future date when they get sold with the next Kickstarter and so on and so forth. But yeah.
yeah, and that's made a lot of I think my products work out because otherwise they just would be sitting if they weren't added as add-ons to Kickstarter. So even if usually using backer kit, so even if it's just a few copies here, a few copies there, if that happens every single Kickstarter, eventually I will eat through the backlog of inventory.
Yeah. Have you gone to reprints yet? I had my first reprint about a couple weeks ago here.
Yeah, I did
Last month.
Scoundrels, Make It Life Criminal. I did the reprint of Journey to the Madlands, the first one,
Oh
and then
yeah.
I did a I can't remember what else I did a reprint on. I might have done. I don't know if I did Gary's Appendix one or not.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was your thought process on like how many to pull the trigger on the second time through? Because I had a lot of back and forth in my mind trying to decide. I had an adventure that had gone out of print that I was like, well, people have been asking for it. I need to get,
Oh, of
one.
how many to order for back
Yeah.
order?
Of course, my
Um,
printer's like, oh, the more you here, look at 500 copies, you can have it for this much. I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to go through that many. I don't know what the demand will be
so
in the
I think
future.
what I've done. So right now, I don't know if you're still using if you're using Mixam, but
Nah,
if you buy Mixam, like I'll just tell you right now, I could order 80 copies of Journey to the Madlands, and it will average about $5 a book.
and you're I hate to keep asking this, but you're talking about the first version
No,
of it or the
the
second
second one, the second
second one.
one.
Okay, and
So
is it black and white on the interior?
it is black and white.
Okay, okay, all right,
So I could
80 at five.
order
Okay,
80 copies and it would be $5, or I could order 100 copies and it would be that's still not right. It was yeah, so it ended up being like 100 copies I think would be was it $4? That's not right. It's like less. But anyway, I can't remember what the numbers are,
but not a huge amount less
but
then.
let's say it's a dollar. Let's say it's a
Uh-huh.
dollar. Like I'm saving $20, by buying 20 more books. That's how I guess how to look at it. So there's a point where it's like holding inventory doesn't do you any good,
Mm-hmm.
and with Mixam, it's like if I ordered 500 copies, it becomes per copy pretty much quite a bit cheaper. But I started thinking of it, if overall it's costed me an extra dollar um, or two, um, it's better to have it that way at this moment than it is to have an extra
Through all the
200
inventory.
copies or 100
Yeah.
copies or even an extra 20 copies because I
That,
don't know, like with Journey of the Madlands, I don't know, it'll trickle, but I don't know long term it's going to be selling a lot. And I thought
mm.
I'm better off of not buying those 20 copies of at paying an extra $80, whatever for those. That's what it came out to be. It's extra $80 for those 20 extra copies. So those copies would have been essentially $4 a piece. That's what it was. And so it's like, well, not really worth it. You know, to save
Mm-hmm.
a dollar on 20 copies, that's $20. I'd be better off just not spending the money. And just see how it goes. And then later on, I'll probably if I order again, maybe I'll order 40 or 50. But so that's the other thing is I was using World of Game Design for fulfillment. And so, but some it's all common knowledge, but Zach Goins left World of Game Design. And I've also decided to not use them anymore for fulfillment.
So I mean, are you still planning on going to Gen Con this year, or is that
No,
actually those
oh
plans?
no, probably not.
Okay.
But I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. I loved it. I loved what I did. I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed every bit about it. There's nothing I regret, but I don't know that I wanted to lay in a on a mattress on a floor in a box and sharing a room with four other guys or three other guys.
Yeah, I guess yeah. That put a damper on the whole
Yeah, I
experience.
mean, it went fine. It went great. There really wasn't too much of a downside to the whole thing. And I made new acquaintances, so no, probably not. So, but now I got to figure out. So then I've been having problems getting. They're finally getting books shipped back to me, but I got Journey of the Madlands, the newest one. I'm gonna be fulfilling that here shortly. So I got to get that. I got to get my office all converted to a warehouse. And then once I start fulfilling, I'm going to have a Kickstarter going. So this will be a new thing. So now I'm doing all these
Experience the
Kickstarters
circle.
this year, but I'm also going to be fulfilling them all as well.
I've always enjoyed fulfilling my products just because, like, I don't know, there's just something neat about like knowing like where it's going and who's getting it and seeing the names and places. I don't know.
Yeah, so I do the fulfillment for the overseas. I do it through Lulu, so I get a little bit of that, but it's the complexity can bind me up because
Mm-hmm.
we get so many products and so many variables. Um, so in my concern is to not mess up shipments.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start getting these kind of odd combinations, and then people go to BackerKit and add on this and that, it can get to be potentially complicated.
Now, I have heard people that have switched over to BackerKit as their crowdfunding source. I've heard them say that that alleviates a lot of the trouble with, trying to sort out those add-ons and stuff, that it's a much smoother system of how it like, handles that and spits it back at you or
So
whatever.
the problem is ultimately I don't understand. So when I run a Kickstarter and it closes, I will, Backer Kit allows you to add a lot more items than you'd normally add on a Kickstarter. So you can
Mm-hmm.
add a ton of stuff on there you want to. But what I'm astounded is the number of people that will do add-ons for things that were in the Kickstarter.
Hmm.
So people have changed their mind and decided during Backer, you know what, I really do want an extra copy of this or that,
Hmm.
so I don't know. This is the thing I don't know. I don't know if you're losing when you do that. I don't know if you're losing those people's uh, change of heart in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you do or you don't. I'm also concerned that Bagger Kit is not as successful at at shaking the trees as Kickstarter is.
And see, that's kind of been the thing, and this is mostly like the DCC crowd because you probably know they all that's their platform now for Goodman Games is BackerKit, um, and that's the one thing they said that they were promised and that they feel like had been strong is that BackerKit's doing a lot more to put their products on BackerKit's I don't know front end storefront whatever that like how like Kickstarter they pick out like oh this is our favorite of the week or whatever they call it, and no matter how many Kickstarters you do it's never you. It's always that's my feeling anyhow. It's like uh and everybody I've talked to, it's the only person that's ever gotten one of those days where Kickstarter tried to promote the item was Brian Shutter, and that's because he knew the person that was kind of in charge of that and emailed her and said, hey, can you give me some treatment here.
Yeah, but you look at the analytics, there is definitely a lot of stuff that's just caused by that is casual traffic that is coming directly from Kickstarter.
You know, so I guess, yeah, I don't know. I need to maybe break that
Oh,
down a little better. Most of my stuff seems to all come from Facebook posts that I've made, but I don't know.
no, I get a tree. I get a large amount. Though I don't. There's some things I question about the way they maybe tally that stuff, but no,
Mm-hmm.
there's I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a pretty high percentage I think of well, there's a decent percentage of sales that I get that are directly off the what's new. They'll tell where it came from. So I definitely um
Benefited from that, huh?
yeah, I benefit from it. But the thing is, what you have different is when you're dealing with Joseph Goodman, and he's decided to set up his tent there. You got people going to there, right? Where
Mhm.
if you just said on your own, go to Backer Kit,
Yeah.
you're not going to get that.
Yeah. Well,
So
and I think you're right. I think that, that it's, you know, um, it's probably a matter of months, if not years, before Backer Kits got as big a weight in the crowdfunding I don't know platforms is what Kickstarter does, but I definitely know that's their thing that they're promising, and what they've been trying to do is really promote the products more on their side, using their own resources to try to get words out about whatever you have up on their site. I have not used them yet, so this is all just hearsay from folks that are doing it.
yeah,
But that's the promise anyhow.
yeah, and that might be something to try. And I'm also so the thing is, I'm also planning on putting out two DCC products, one maybe this year and another one next year.
Nice.
So I'll be kind of testing the waters and we'll see how that goes. But maybe who knows, maybe I'll be doing the same thing with Backer Kit. I don't know. So I got a product that really, I'm trying to do one that just mainly get people to buy and not necessarily be a income generator, but to kind of capture a group of people to
Hmm.
be able to market the next thing.
Makes sense.
So I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, unless we have two realities that we can look against. It's
Schroeder's cat kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I may, like I say, I may try it, and especially like you said with Goodman doing that, it'll be an interesting experiment. And I also wonder if any of the Goodman, if that's the case, if any of the I was trying to think because really what I would like is the Goodman people to actually also. Well, I guess I still would sell them a backer kit. I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see what would. I don't know if anybody's talked about the Goodman games, what they did with the Purple Planet. Do you know
Yeah.
how that worked out for people?
Everyone I've talked to that was part of that, I think they call it the Horde, has been real pleased with how that worked out. They felt like they got a lot of cross pollination from the different products. Because for those that are maybe listening that don't know, it's the Goodman Games was reprinting this product called the Purple Planet, and they're doing it there on BackerKit as their crowdfunding source. But then other third party publishers, they really were trying to champion, hey, if you want to be part of this, if you want to make a product for it, adventure, whatever supplement, let's do it all at once. Let's do it as this one massive campaign with all these tendrils where, for instance, I bought this one. I can't even remember what it was called. Like, tag on it. What was it called? Die Robot or something like that. I think it was um, by this Aaron. Oh my goodness, my brain is not working tonight. Um, Aaron Creeder. He does. He's an artist that also does some game writing, adventure writing, and he's phenomenal. So he was doing that, and so I wanted to get that because I just love his stuff. But I didn't really want the rest of the Purple Planet stuff. But at any rate, by going into his backer kit um, funding for that, then as there's updates for his stuff, there's also little adverts for the other stuff that's out there that I could grab and way to like basically get it all packaged as one thing and then save on shipping. And it just seems like, I mean, there's a lot of pieces moving there. And from what I understand, Backer Kit kind of was able to say, no, we can make this work. We can run the machine to where you just give us your individual things and we'll make them all kind of meld together as one campaign.
Yeah, but you have to get your product to one person to be centralized to ship out, though.
Yeah, so the way that does work, you're right, that they're all shipping. Each creator is having either the books delivered to a particular point, or they themselves are getting them, then shipping them to that point. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
so
that.
that's the how yeah, that's kind of interesting. I've talked to a president of a company about doing like a third party licensing, and they kind of offered something in the lines of supposedly helping people build a commercial product and using their game engine. And but it's been kind of interesting trying to understand exactly because I don't think they really know what they're wanting. But I kind of compare. I was talking to Zach about this, Zach Goins. Um, you, you know, Goodman Games is very clear what they're. It's very clear what they're doing with third party content, and they're really trying to get. They're not necessarily worried about everybody producing a certain type of thing, and they seem to have a clear vision as far as uh, of just a almost
Like you're
a
trying to say they don't like really curate it themselves very much. They're not like, oh, it has to look like this, it has to have
yeah
that, kind of, yeah. No,
yeah
you're
just
right.
it,
They really, as
yeah
long as it's not offensive, they're like, go for it, have fun.
yeah and this other company really wasn't, but they also weren't providing much. It's kind of weird, but anyway, but Goodman doesn't seem like they are not trying to get people to produce even a certain type of thing. They're not like trying to funnel people into like with hardbacks or soft covers or full color
Hmm.
or whatever size. It really is just kind of like you guys do whatever you want, and we'll just promote it. And it seems like it's created a culture that is quite a bit different than what I've seen. Where this other one I think is looking for hopefully a smaller group of people to produce things that will maybe kind of synergize with what they're already doing in a way.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, it is kind of interesting, and the way Joseph has done stuff is it's I find it pretty phenomenal as far as
Yeah,
the
no, it's uh one, I mean, from a creator standpoint, it's just amazing. I mean, it's the easiest thing ever to just, you tell them what you want to do and they just give you the thumbs up and tell you, hey, check back in when you're ready for your Kickstarter, and you do that, and then they promote it themselves, and that's always a big bump up the day that they release their newsletter or whatever with your product in it. Um, but it is, I don't know. To me, it almost reminds me of like the D20 boom when third edition kind of was like, okay, open
yeah
license, um, and it generated a big interest in the game and a big interest in the you know uh, hobby in general. And I kind of feel like that's what's happened with DCC is there's so much stuff out there for it now, and there's so many different varieties that um, it's hard not to be able to see value in that as far as a game master to not see that, oh well, any flavor I want, there's something out there that's going to hit that. But then there's also the whole white noise thing where it's you can be overwhelmed by all the things that are out there being printed for it.
Yeah, I think that is true. I think, yeah, you're right, and that can be the danger. But I think what definitely is nice is you go to their booth and they just have a tremendous amount of content,
Mm.
and which I think in a lot of ways just goes to and it's it might be in some ways kind of like well, that's probably not a good analogy, but there's definitely a strong fan. The fan base is very strong and very loyal. The people that are involved in creating content are very passionate about it, and I think it creates a certain environment that's been nurtured by Goodman rather than just kind of ignored. So I think I don't know that I've not seen any other publisher do what Goodman Games is doing in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. And there's another piece to it, I think, as far as like what could you call that? Uh like confidence. Like if you put out a game book, your own system that is, if it's just a rule book, there are a lot of people that'll be like, "That's interesting, but I bet it's gone next year. I bet I'll never hear of it again."
Yeah.
But if you put out the rule book and 50 supplements for it, then all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, this is for realsies. This is there's something to this game, and it has some feels like it has staying power."
Yeah, and I think what I'm one thing I've thought about too is coming up with a setting, a bestiary section, and a thing for like characters. Um, one thing is you could do a book and you could put adventures in it, but I thought it may make sense rather than putting adventures in a book, like as part of let's say a main book, is is publish them separately, like through a Kickstarter and make them small and make them affordable. But just you can also just give those away for the people who are backing, at the level for the Kickstarter, get a physical copy, and everybody gets PDFs that
Mhm.
otherwise. But I thought, and then the idea is, I think if you start, I wonder if you start out with this is my setting. And these are my rules, and you already start out with a couple, two or three small adventures that are maybe even just zines. I think it does signal to somebody like your intention is to continue
Mhm.
if that's what you want to do. But I think that I kind of wonder if that's a good model or great model, or if it really that doesn't matter or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that like I feel like at the conventions I've been selling the Dare Luck Club, um, in the recent few, I've had a lot more people that stop and spend time looking at it because there's now the main rule book and
Yeah.
three other adventures and a zine. Whereas before, when it was just the main rule book or the main rule book in the first adventure set, a lot of people just kind of look at it and be like, yeah, whatever. It wasn't enough for them to feel like it's something. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like there is something to it. And I know on the next big game system that I'm launching, it's tentatively called Movies Till Dawn. It's like a B movie thing. And with it, one of the things that's kept me from launching it as early as I could have is I'm trying to build up a bunch of adventures for it so that they can all kind of come out at the same time.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. So is this going to be a custom setting? I mean,
Well,
custom say by
it's
a
game rules,
custom rule
everything. It's
set.
it's all original.
Yeah.
It plays with playing cards instead of dice, and it's all brand new.
Yeah, I've not played many games that use cards as the mechanic, but I think it's a very underutilized. Uh, it's a very underutilized system. I think is using cards.
It's been fun because you got with dice you've got numbers and that's it, and there's a lot you can do with that, don't get me wrong, but with playing cards you've got numbers and suits and colors and all sorts of things that you can work into your mechanics. So it's been fun. I mean, I don't know that I'd want to play every game using a deck of cards, but this has been fun to do. It's something different.
Yeah, I think yeah, there's a certain amount of joy in with dice and rolling. I mean, there's a tactile difference. But boy, they're, if you just go through, if you go just beyond just the if you go just beyond the regular playing cards, I mean, you look at a lot of these other games that have very interesting, like more of the card games, as
Like a
far as
deck
like,
building sort of.
yeah, there's a lot of very interesting mechanics and things that you can do. And I just thought, in times past, I wondered if you could just even like melee combat, if that could just be, you draw certain cards and you play certain cards and
Hmm.
maybe bluff and you faint. I don't know. I mean, I think there might be opportunities that could be, utilized. But that's for brains bigger than mine to be able to do.
So you don't have a system that you've been kind of tinkering with or anything?
Oh, I never tinker with systems.
Really? Okay.
I tinker with systems, but I don't tinker to create
Oh,
systems.
okay.
No, I don't. I just don't have that kind of horsepower.
See that's what if I had my choice, I do a lot, making adventures in the monster book or whatever. But if I had my choice, that would be the thing I'd most want to do is make systems because it's just fascinating to me all the different paths you can go down and how you can push a certain element to make the game feel one way or push a different element to make it feel a different way. There's so much that can be done as far as that goes. So
Yeah, I think no, and I kind of in some ways wish I was that way. I'm probably more of a person that just modifies what exists in different ways, but I don't think I do it in a systematic enough way to that it would that I would trust myself to actually. It's fun to try stuff at your table. Yeah, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this, try
mhm.
this. But to do a published product, it's like going to it kind of goes back to so I'm doing the setting. The Blood Sands is going to be for old school essentials. I really wasn't necessarily intending to do like a character a section for even though I know I needed to, but for characters. But you look at old school
You're talking
essentials,
about
kind
like
of
new
like,
classes, that kind of thing?
yeah, new
Okay.
classes. I'm
All right.
sorry, yeah, but yeah, certain systems like say 2D20 or with or a cipher system, like I could make archetypes all day long. It is built for it is built to just tweak along. I mean, it is
Hmm.
very clear how to me
Good
things
skeletal
work.
system of how that.
Yeah, it's very,
Yeah.
I don't say modular is not the word, but in a sense, you could say, well, this feat does this. Well, I understand the logic of this feat. I can just use that same logic. Same thing with like with your zero engine. You know, it's pretty much this plus one, this plus two, if this and this, whatever,
Mhm.
and you can kind of follow. There's a logic, and you can follow that logic. But when you come up with old school essentials, or even probably even like with the even with D&D, or even with like the Dungeon Crawl Classics, is you got it's not that way,
Yeah.
and
How
then
do
you
you
have
know if
experience
this character
points.
is the equivalent of that character? Yeah. Or
Yeah, and I
class, that
think
is.
yeah, there's nothing real clear. Like if you're to make a character class and you do stuff, I mean, there's really no in these other systems. They're not a science because there's still stuff like some things are better than others and some things were,
Mhm.
but it's nowhere near as just kind of. It feels like when you're dealing with the more the D20 systems, there's a lot more craftsmanship and less of just like straight engineering.
Mhm.
It's like, well, take a little off of this, add a little to that, and like, yeah, right
Doesn't
about
feel
this.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
like, so like, maybe it's kind of broken, but if all of a sudden you change the experience point, you know, to the next levels, maybe that fixes it. That's the kind of stuff that I don't, to me, it's one hand very abstract, but the other problem is it's also very much, it isn't. I mean, it's not abstract like Fate. Koru's abstracting. It's kind of abstract, but it also has very real world mechanics at the same time.
Mhm.
And I don't, and I find that very difficult and intimidating.
I know that we're probably getting close on time, and I was hoping to ask you about the Badlands, the journey of the Badlands, and how the decision process. You put out the first what's the best way to name that? Would you first version of it first?
That's a
How
good
do you normally refer
question,
to it?
and this is what we've done. It was the first issue, but we'll call it issue zero.
All right. So you did issue zero, and then you decided to come back and you had a vision that you wanted to accomplish that either changed or maybe you didn't accomplish with the first one. How did that work out as far as like, what was the thought process to going in the new format? And then like, because my big thing, and man, I hope that this is in no way meant to be pejorative or meant to like be like, oh, that was a bad move, but it's a scary move to me, and it's a move that I might have to make with my Dare Luck Club rule book because I want to redo it someday and I want to do it better than the original, but I don't want everyone to be mad at me that I'm putting out the same thing they already bought. And I've got some ideas for how to do it different and make it, value added for people that already bought the first one. But the point is this, like what was the thought process? Was it, you know, was it a decision or was it like, nope, it's no brainer? How's it worked out so far? What do you think?
So, the original Journey of the Madlands was done by using Kevin Crawford's Other Dust. And I randomly generated enclaves. And I used those for prompts. And I wrote most of them. I think Mark wrote one. I think he wrote one. Plus, he wrote some other stuff. And the idea was these would be, you could put them on a hex map any way you want or however you want to do it. They're drop in enclaves with stuff going on. And the idea was they aren't connected, but they could be connected. But there is no thread that runs through them.
I mean, as I recall, and granted, it's been like a year since I've read it, but there is some like you suggest some things about how like one can relate to the next one or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, but there's not a you're talking about like an overall like meta plot or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Okay.
like you could do this. Here's some ideas, but in general, uh, I don't think there's anything wrong with that concept. But I think when I went to to do the next step, and I don't know what that was not a I don't know if it was not appealing or if it seemed to me better to provide something to start from and ground the characters in a location and then expand out from there. And but
So you're
even
kind of
though
like
the
dialing in the microscope or whatever. You're getting it's like one hex and really, really patting down that thing versus
yeah.
okay.
And so, but more than just getting a hex down, it goes back to I don't know. It's just this is kind of weird. I kind of thought about this. Some stuff didn't come out. Some things did not come to mind till after I did it. But in general, the this is patterned off the City of Horn and the Legion of Gold, and that was a Fort Ward. I can't remember. But anyway, there is a location that characters start at, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a city, and it's got listed all the guards and listed all the guns and listed all the vehicles and all, like just like an old age modules, like, yeah, they got, you know, 27 snowmobiles and 33 long rifles and
And
44
guard number
grenades and
four
this
has
type of
five pennies in his
thing.
pocket,
Yeah.
and
And so, but the thing is like, it makes sense because it goes back to keep on the borderlands, right?
mm-hmm.
You need to have a base that you can start from to go out of into the crazy lands.
Mm-hmm.
You need normality. You need some sort of normality. If you're creating an environment where things are crazy, you need something normal. Now, it's not completely normal, the starting location, the city, um, but it is fairly normal. And so I wanted to start somewhere normal, and I realized this tied in very closely to a Gamma World game I ran back when I was in high school, and I took a community college and made it into a fort as we're playing in the town. and then I named different I'll call it clans within that fort after the people around the table. And so like, the Bryanites, I can't really call it, they're the ones who are the farmers, you know what I mean? And the Russells were the strategists, and the such and such were the mechanics. And so I had this idea of a community college that looked kind of like a castle. I mean, it's a really odd shaped, uh, with a what do they call it in the center. But so instead of doing a college, it's a high school. And so the starting part was a city, small town. It's got its problems, but it's kind of like, apple pie, Coca-Cola, and God bless America kind of thing. And so there was an apocalypse that happens, and this town was damaged and people were hurt, but it wasn't completely destroyed. And so the high school makes sense because, to a place for people to build up from. Because we got wood shop, you got machine shop, you've got, in the
Timber
Mirrors, you got
Hall,
like,
or
FFA, you got agriculture stuff, you got your home ec, you got your cafeteria. You also have a structure of principal, vice principals, the teachers. I mean, you think about it, it's like there's a logical organization that can go around that, and really would make sense if you're to expand it out into a post-apocalyptic community. And so the idea was, there is this, and then within this, there are people who have agendas. There are different ways of immigrants, and there are tensions that have been created. No different than a small town, right?
mm-hmm.
Some of these people, well, we've got a name, and we've been people who've been the whole time, and then we've got places of influence, and then there's newer people that come in, and they're integrated not so much. And you may have a new group of people come in that are looked down upon. Maybe these are immigrants from the South or whatever. So the idea was create a place that's kind of normal, people can hang out, but it's also full of issues and things going on that people can either be part of the town, or they can be outsiders inside the town dealing with it. And then as you go outside the town, that's when things start to get weird. And so to me, the idea is you could start out with the center being normal and get weirder, weirder, weirder. And that everything that I did for the first Madlands we'll call issue 0, is still useful. It's just these hexes are maybe an hour or maybe 60 miles away or 100 miles away.
Did you make any like content references or anything between the two so far?
There was one I had to do with her. I think it was a radio station. I did. But then again, this, so if you look at the issue I just did, I created a regional map, and I just filled in a corner of it. So really I could do about, I don't know, probably about 3 to 5 more issues. And then that map would be filled in. Or you just buy the first issue and you just fill it in yourself because it's blank. I gave you some hooks, give you a few things, and the idea is then, so there's a region, there's a town, there's a weird forest that's perpetually burning. There's a factory in there. Then I got a bestiary with a bunch of creatures. And so the idea was, to me, it just made it more of just a random thing, and something that's more intentional, I think would be more useful, and still could be, you can still drag and drop things as well. It created to me, a logical narrative thread. And when I start having threads, then my mind can pick up and think about what other things to add.
Mm-hmm. Did I mean, because did it close yesterday? When did it close? The
No, it
kick
closed. It closed.
last week. It was recent, wasn't it?
It was just recent. I think it was
Yeah.
last. Was it last week? Yeah, yeah. It hasn't been. I haven't gotten paid from Kickstarter yet, so it was last week.
Okay. Um. So kind of now that you can kind of do a little rear view mirror, did you get a lot of people like myself who like loved the first one and were in on this one, or does it seem like a new crowd that came in, or?
There's a lot of new people. Most of the revenue came from people buying both issues. It's like
Nice.
this is probably I've sold less issues and made more money. I don't know about compared to the first one, but in general, if I look at this compared to my other Kickstarters at the same level, I've had less backers and I've made, for the same amount of money.
Huh. Yeah. I, it's weird. So you look at that and you're like, oh, like it's kind of good, kind of bad. It's got
Yeah.
a double-edged sword. It's
And the thing is, it's weird. What did I just do? I created a setting for a game that does not exist.
yeah.
I mean, I'm using old school essentials, but really it's like there's no Gavin's never come out with the post-apocalyptic old school essentials. So what I'm doing is just really weird and out there. And the fact that I've had as many people back this is just absolutely astounding.
Um, Aesthetically, because one of the things, I mean, the content's amazing in the original one in issue 0, but like I've always looked at this as like the layout on it and the choices for like where art is and how art's used, um, and just like the space that's the white space and everything in it. That's I've just always looked at this and been like, man, this is fantastic.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I did change things up. I went to black and white. The one of the things that was an advantage for the previous one is we just all kind of threw our stuff together and then kind of split the money at the end. But and that gave me a lot of access to inexpensive art.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was not the same thing. So I'm not the best writer, and I had to spend a lot of money to get my words edited. I've got I, the I've I the entire issue, the one that just kickstarted, I think 23,000 words. Um, and Stefan Surratt, he also contributed some material. But it was yeah, it took a lot of reworking. And the problem I had, I didn't have a necessarily clear vision of how this stuff should be arranged, how it should be directed. And it's like at the end, it's like, well, I should add some rules. I'm claiming old school essentials. I probably ought to fake something. So then I went to the Traveler SRD, the Cephas engine, and I just kind of pulled some mechanics out of that and threw them down and kind of add a few things here and a few things there, and hopefully people find it useful. But I just thought at the end, there was that nonsense where I was like, you know what, I probably should have had something.
Yeah. That that's been a thing for me is that other than my own systems, that all I've really done is kind of published in the lane with MCC, DCC, and that stuff, and you get your built-in audience, so you don't have to worry about that. Um, but then I've always thought, well, it'd be interesting to make a non-denominational game where it's like, this is fantasy, use it, OSR or fifth ed or whatever, and like Levi Combs, that's kind of his model for the most part, or has been up until
Well, but he no, he does specific editions, so it's not
well
general.
on the adventures, yeah, but like his zines that he
Oh
does,
yeah, but
they're
he's
always
hitting the same
agnostic.
crowd. I doubt anybody from 5e is buying those zines, but the people that are all the old school variations are definitely buying it.
Mm.
I should say nobody from 5e is buying it, but my guess is its core audience is the DCC and OSE and whatever all the variations are of those older
Yeah.
systems, because I don't think it fits the aesthetic for fifth edition, but people may be buying it. But I'm not gonna say nobody does, but it's a different aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah, I don't really know. It's one thing I probably should ask him about sometime because I know, like, even his adventures, which are published under fifth ed rules, they're not very fifth ed. Like the feel of them, that is. They're they have that old school and a little bit of the
You're right.
DCC
Right.
really wild.
He does not do the trade dress like a fifth edition
Mhm.
adventure. And
But
you're right,
yet,
the style
like,
is not the same.
but
He
he
does
tends to knock them out of the park with those with the adventures he's done. So I don't know. Maybe there's a core of fifth ed players that like the rules but don't like the common feel of the game and
Oh,
are
well,
looking
the
for that.
thing is, I mean, really what Levi's offering is if you're buying anything from Levi, you're buying the Levi experience.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of people who, there's a lot of old school players that also play fifth edition. They play it with their friends, they play it with their family.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that just go on and on about D&D's, dying or whatever. But there's a lot of people that are, and I would say that I don't think I could be wrong. I think it's an older crowd who loves what he's doing that probably play multiple systems, and fifth edition's one of them. And they're just saying, you know what, my group will play nothing but fifth edition. We're going to play, the Curse of the Mummy Bride. And they're going like, oh yay, it's like, all right.
Yep.
So that's where I think his audience is. I could be wrong. I don't know demographics wise, but my guess is probably older people who dig the grindhouse vibe.
Do you have a feel for your own demographic? Do you feel like you're also a kind of old school crowd,
I don't
or
know.
old school, not just old school like rules, but old school meaning us old folks.
Well, it is demographically older.
Yeah.
I'm pretty positive. Is that, yeah, I think I'm trying to think. At least my podcast is. As far as this goes, I would say it's mostly men. At least looking at Facebook ads, it's mainly men. I think it's probably 35 to 55. It's pretty right in there. But I mean, the thing is, it's like, kids these days, they got a lot of them have different tastes, and more
Mm.
power to them. It's not me. But
I think you've mentioned before the idea of like I forget how you put it, but like trying to tie things into a more anime style feel might be the Rosetta Stone to capturing a younger audience.
yeah, I think the thing is, there's a lot of things that I read on Twitter. People comment about, where it's going and the power creep and all this. But, in the end, you know, it's all power fantasy, right? Even
Yeah.
even even old school essentials, it's like you gotta shoot a lightning bolt and kill a dragon. It's like, come on, why is that okay? But yet, you're a first level character and you got to make several saving throws before you die is bad. Like, that's the other thing too. It's like dying. People go on about like it's so hard, fifth edition, blah 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 blah. But it's like, if you really, really, really think that death should be on the table, then take away potions of healing and take away resurrection. If that's what you really believe, because those people don't. They're like, yeah, we need to have character death. It needs to mean something. Well, is resurrection on the table? If it is, it no longer is. It's
Mm.
like, at least fifth edition is open about it. So I think in general, we all probably on the spectrum of whatever that is. It's just that kids, a lot of times, with what they're enjoying and they're consuming is further on that same spectrum than what we're
Mm.
doing, and which is fine. I really prefer. I mean, I'm much more of a '70s style of media. The Conan, the Elric, Hawk Moon. I mean, those are worlds I want to play. John Carter, Mars. I know that predates that, but those are the worlds I want to play and do. I don't necessarily want to be He-Man or any of those you know types of characters. But that's okay. I just but I also need to realize too that, when we play with people that, it's okay to let people give in or give into people being able to do certain things too. So, well, Lou, I think we're hitting the time space continuum.
Yeah, you almost I don't know if you can go for like another 9 minutes, you can have an equivalency of a this old dungeon episode.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. So let's
Yeah,
talk about
now
this.
you're
Let's talk about
taking
this
our
old
time.
dungeon. So we'll fill the 9 minutes talking about this old dungeon.
Yeah. So this old dungeon is my podcast with Bill Barsh and Edwin Nagy. Um, and we just we talk about old adventures and rule sets and what we would do with them nowadays to kind of freshen them up. And we just chat like this, folks. We normally go about 2 hours. We always tell ourselves at the beginning, 1 hour recording tonight. We're doing a 1 hour recording, and then 2 hours later, we're like, hey, I guess we should wrap it up. But
Yeah, and you also talk about Car Wars adventures.
yeah, so that's a weird one there. That was a real random thing that Edwin's like, well, what about Car Wars? I've been looking at this box set on the shelf, and it is like our fifth highest downloaded episode already, and it's only been out a month. I don't know what it is. People must have had a thing for Car Wars. I didn't realize it was so hot.
Well, I think here's the deal. I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about, and it's like topics that have been bandied about for quite a long time. But you know, Car Wars, I think people our age has all have at least played it and have some feelings towards it. But the idea of adventures, Car Wars did not realize there's such a thing. I knew there was the auto duel,
Mm,
champion slash something you could buy at one time. But I think the idea is that you hit a topic that definitely piqued people's interest. And
yeah.
I thought that was interesting too. Is like the some of the stuff you were talking about, because I believe it's a you know turn the page and this happens, turn the page and this happens, and roll to determine. But I thought some of the insights and even how to utilize it in other types of games was pretty fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it was interesting. One of the games that's on the horizon to be produced is the solo adventure for MCC, and so that was a big thing that I've been struggling with. It's been in production now like 2 years, trying to find like that happy medium between something that feels like a which way book and is really kind of contrived and narrow in what you can do, where it's you can have a very simple set of rules and be able to run through the book and play it as a solo adventure, versus having something that feels more like a role-playing game, but then you have all these little mechanics dangling out here that oh, if you meet this character you gain this thing that then is going to affect this next encounter you might have, and trying to knit that together without it getting to become this big complex monster of paperwork and subsystems and stuff. Um, and that's one thing, the Car Wars, definitely that particular adventure, the convoy, was really pretty narrow. Like there wasn't, you didn't have options to, like, I don't know, like if you met and did something with someone, it was very unlikely that was going to have any effect on the next few choices you made or the next people you ran into or whatever. There's only a few instances of that, and I kind of was disappointed in that. But yeah.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I think the idea was, or came away was that the concept was great. The some of the execution was fun, but it just was missing certain elements that would have made it a actually made it a really fun adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think
Yeah.
the helicopter is one. Is like you see a helicopter, what do you do? Well, okay, I see a helicopter. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that's a good example. Like, I mean, your choice was to ignore it or to shoot at it.
Yeah.
It's like, there's something in between those two on the spectrum, I think, Like I would have thought that you would have, if you had picked a certain piece of equipment out, you could have used it to, like, analyze it, like maybe you got some sort of telescope or something, or I don't know. They're just, there was this whole thing with this radio antenna being fixed at the beginning of the game, and I kept waiting for that to pay off. And I'm sure maybe it did on some choice I didn't make, but that would have been another one. If you have the radio antenna, you may choose to go signal them and see who they are, ask for their call letters or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, there's just some really stiff moments, but then there were some that were pretty fun.
Well, and I think too, I mean, you having said that, I mean, if you could even, there's things if you do an adventure that way, where characters have choices, and then you like the antenna. I mean, that's kind of a fun thing to put in an adventure, like not necessarily a literal antenna, but like you can do a thing early on, and you make this choice early on, and make multiple choices early on. You don't know what the implications are. Shoot the helicopter, don't shoot the helicopter, whatever. But then then later on you start to see
Hmm.
the effects of those choices or the
They
ramifications
just
of
kind
those
of come to
choices.
blossom as you go on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's to me perfect because a lot of times it's like you just go to a room, kill, not necessarily true, but it's like you run a monster, oh, run away. I mean, it's like things become very, very like problematic. But the idea is like there's choices that can be made and they can have impact. And maybe the choices are like I'm not sure what happened to the radio, but let's say you have limited resources or limited time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a thing with this particular adventure pack here that they did, where you're also keeping track of you got this many hours to get the load from one city to the next, and so if you do choose to stop and fix this or talk with these people, you got to deduct the time off your little chart there. So that I mean that I thought was really good. It did get at times to become kind of like a pressure cooker. I don't know if we have time to do that. I don't know what's coming up.
Yeah, but
So
you could start like a game where like your convicts are about ready to escape, but you only carry one thing, and maybe the guards are killed. Like you can carry a sword, you can carry a shovel, you can carry a
first
pick.
aid kit, or
Yeah, like that. And it's like what you pick. Like this is you know could be there's going to be some things going to be great, can be bad. Or you as a group can decide we want to favor more swords, or we want to favor more run away, and it's like to me I don't see many adventures like that, and I think uh, there could be a lot of fun with those types of situations where you have very clear choices and going in that those choices could have ramifications, like right away, well, if I can only choose a sword or a shovel or a pick or a whatever, then that like, well, I could probably hit somebody with a pick, but it's not very easy to hit somebody with a pick, an honest to goodness pick.
yeah,
Same thing with a shovel. Like
just the
I can use it for
shoulder, yeah.
combat, but also I can't really use a sword for digging very well. If I try and break through really hard material, I could break my sword or dull it. So I mean, it's like it's kind of I think it's kind of fun. I think that would be a great adventure to have written.
Yeah, that could be a neat little like talk about doing the sci-fi fantasy mix or whatever. Do like a survival kind of adventure where you're on the ship, it's falling apart. You're gonna be taking this escape pod to the planet. This is what's around you. You
So,
have so much time to choose and so many equipment slots, and that's what you got.
I think we've talked about this. You've played the Volturnus modules, or you
Oh yes.
haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an idea for a game. So it's like Volturnus. Volturnus is a desert world. You're up in space, and pirates attack, and you jettison from the ship, and then you're trying to make it through to safety, but you end up joining with these various groups and fighting the pirates and overthrowing the Sathar. But I thought, what if take that theme? What if you're a ship? Let's say it's some civilians, but they're also taking dangerous prisoners, and they're also taking
Oh,
law
that's a good
enforcement
one.
officials. And it crashes on the planet, and everybody's in pods, and different things happen.
It instant factions.
But the problem is you don't know who's who and who's what,
Ah.
because it could be a bad person killed the guard is wearing their clothes, and you could have your set group. Maybe you draw in the beginning what you are, and the people you encounter along the way, you don't know. You know what I mean?
No,
It's
I think it's brilliant. I like this
and so I don't
instant
know how to
tension.
ever make that work. But that's one thought I had in my mind is trying to make it to safety, but then dealing with all of the not only the dangers of the desert and the creature, and maybe also attacking by another group of pirates who are coming by, but then also the individuals you come across. It's kind of almost like I guess now they do with the zombie movies. Like how much do you trust these people?
Hmm.
Or then all of a sudden maybe you're lying. Maybe you're with a group. This would be fun for a con game. Like it's like a werewolf, right? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm with this law enforcement guy. I know if I make it to the end, I'm going to go to jail. you know,
So
the
we
player
always
has to make a choice.
with the game Top Secret, that's always been a policy of mine is when you play a game of Top Secret, you always got to give all the players like a submission that's in most of the time like the submission is to like kill off one of the other players or steal something from them or make it switch out the formulas so that you have the real formula to the
Yeah.
the death toxin and the fake ones what they think they got for their agency. And that always builds a lot of
Yeah.
subterfuge and everything in the game. So we're all in this together, except not.
Yeah. All of a sudden turns, yeah. That's pretty fun. So anyway, we better go. It's getting late.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff. This has been
Oh,
amazing.
well, thanks for joining, especially for a last minute ask.
Anytime.
All right. Take care.